The world is changed.
I feel it in the water. I feel it in the earth. I smell it in the air. Much that once was is lost, for none now live who remember it.
Do not put your material shoes on the holy water!
For him, being underwater is as familiar as breathing air.
Water has memory. The water that makes up you and me has passed through at least 4 humans and or animals before us.
We're gonna need more holy water.
Death lies before us as we sail for the fountain of youth.
Water can give life, and water can take life. But all water has perfect memory.
What are you doing?
Making mac and cheese.
There's no water, dummy. We're in outer space.
Is that holy water?
Yeah, it's the baptismal well.
So, Professor Luc Montagnier, who fast forward to several years later, he is the Nobel laureate, wins the Nobel Prize. And I don't remember what year it was, but you can look it up. He passed away, actually, if I'm not mistaken, he just passed away last year. So it's kind of like in his memory. He worked with HIV patients' blood, and in the plasma, he found an electromagnetic signal that was present in the blood of HIV patients. Well, he started using Jacques Benvenist's same hypothesis and experimentation, and essentially took the DNA from these HIV patients and diluted it, put it in a beaker or a container of some sort, and diluted it heavily with water, right? And so he eventually, to not bore you guys to death, he eventually diluted this substance so much that there was not a single molecule left in the sample. Okay.
Right.
So in some of the samples, not all of them, he did leave some in some of the samples, and that was precisely that, so he would have a placebo, and so that he would have an actual legit diluted quantity of the HIV virus. Okay. He had 10 placebo and 10 highly diluted solutions. Excuse me. So how did he go about testing this? So he takes all these solutions, both placebo and non, and he records the electromagnetic symbol and turns it into a digitized form. Okay. Now, he took 2 test tubes that were completely diluted samples, and they continued to emit this electromagnetic frequency. So once he did this, he uploaded this information from these completely 1000% zero molecule of HIV samples online, and asks the Italian University Benevento, which specializes in molecular biology. Okay, note, this is important. We're going to get into quantum, and we're going to be dealing with molecular. So it's important in your brain to keep the two separate. Okay, so they specialize in molecular biology. Well, he takes the data that was sent and digitized, and in Italy, I guess he's like the head there at the lab at the university, receives this digital signal in Italy from France. Okay, mind you, there's some serious distance in between both. And
there really is.
It's crazy. He puts some water, just regular water, in a test tube. Okay, and then in that test tube, he puts into like a small metallic barrel and covers it really well to make sure that there's no was it radioactive? Yeah, it was an anti-radiation chamber. That's exactly what it was, to avoid any potential distortion. So what does he do? Well, he plays plays the music of the electromagnetic digitized signal that was sent from France into this water. Okay, and then I think it was about
That's
for an
right. I
hour.
forgot about the resonance, the sound part of this.
Yeah.
It's such a cool
I mean,
experiment.
all of this. I mean, that's why this is like, it's so crazy, because all of it's like, dude, you digitized the freaking thing. Like, it wasn't even in the same
Make it
medium,
sound
and
right.
It's mind-boggling. Okay, so then they use the PCR machine, which basically, if I'm remembering right, basically shakes up the water intensely. I am not a scientist, obviously, guys. And then they put basic building blocks called nucleotides, which is just the basic organic material for DNA. Okay, production
It's very
in this water.
little bits of protein.
But they're just pieces. They're not. There's no
Right.
order to them. There's no structure.
Right.
There's no foundation even for them to do anything. And they also include what's called a polymerase. I think that's what it's called. Shell.
Polymerase.
And they use that as the catalyst, essentially, to stimulate these pieces. Okay, so when they put these nucleotides and they allow this polymerase to work as the catalyst, after having played this music for this unsuspecting water, the water
Just
freaking
water. Just water.
The water freaking reforms the DNA, the entire sequence. It reforms it. And then wait,
Of
it
that
gets
virus.
better. It gets better. Okay. So at first it doesn't happen, but when they take the DNA fragments and they introduce it, the DNA begins to form with this catalyst present. Okay. Now, so we already have here an amazing feat, because across this ridiculous space and through different mediums, we have
and that's the thing. Right.
crazy.
Right. To change up the mediums the way they do. See, the only thing that makes sense of all of that to me, again, is electricity. Electricity can neither be created nor destroyed. Just
which is where we're going, actually.
Transformed.
So that's already beyond belief. But then what do they do? They reverse the exact same experiment back to France. Digitized signal from an actual physical molecularly formed DNA strand, blah 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 blah. Okay, and they send it back to France. Guess how freaking identical this DNA strand was to the original. What do you remember the percentage, Shell? I have it on hand. Do you remember how much it was?
I think it's pretty much all of it.
It was 98% identical.
That's crazy.
I mean, in scientific terms, on scientific levels, 98% accuracy is madness. I mean, it's
when you have something with as many steps as this.
Yeah.
Process is really,
and I should mention the precautions that they take at the very beginning too are insane. When they go in to record, they're like, "Hey, we're not sure how this is going to work because we've never had any electronic equipment in the lab. So please turn off your phones." They took their batteries out of their phones to make sure. We're talking
and they
back
ended
in
up
2012.
They ended up making it so that they could only record with one certain camera, because it had a really low
super low
emission coming out, and so it wouldn't interfere. Like, it's a very impressive.
I will post this in the notes because it's very worth watching.
It is, and you it's very easy to find if you put in Luc
Montier?
How did you say his name? Montier, spelled Montagnier, and water memory, like you pull them right up.
Yeah. So then they try to figure out. They're like, "What the heck is actually happening? This is crazy. Like, how is this possible?" Well, in the documentary, an individual, Mark Henry, who's a chemical and quantum physicist, basically explains that although the matter is removed, the physical matter is removed, the electromagnetic property or
Signal.
signal. I don't know what the heck else to call it. Yeah, the electromagnetic signal. That's exactly right. Is trapped within oxygen molecules that act like a barrier. They automatically form this little ring, and they trap the signal in there.
See,
but
the
it's
polarity
because water
of
is the medium, or otherwise they wouldn't stay there. That's insane. Okay, so there's no matter, but what's trapped in this little molecular, I don't know. I think they're just electrons. In fact, I don't remember if they were oxygen molecules or just electrons. I think they're just electrons. But nonetheless, the electromagnetic signal gets trapped in there with no physical material, and this is what they call coherent domain. Go look this up. It's really cool. So what does this mean? And this is where we're going to really get to it. The healing properties of water. This is where we're going into this right now. This is why I gave you guys this build up. And this is why we're talking about it being a potential catalyst or stimulus for making portals, which we're going to get to very soon as well. This has huge implications for health. And you know what's crazy?
Yeah,
I never heard
does.
Peep about this. This is
why in the world would you? Water is way too plentiful and cheap.
And petroleum, it costs money and makes money for people. So why would we have access to water, for God's sake?
Right.
They figure out, well, if we can use this coherent domain to trap things within water that are beneficial for human cells, which are molecular structures, but affect all those molecules at the subatomic level, right? At the quantum level, well, then that's a whole different ballgame. Now we're talking about something entirely different, which this chemical and quantum physicist starts asking himself, well, this is tough because most biologists, most doctors, most molecular biologists as well don't really deal in the quantum. They deal at the atomic level, right? And so because of this, they have to understand both, and that's another reason we're talking about these boxes, this bleed
that's
over.
A crazy type of brain.
It really is. It takes a certain kind of person to understand that kind of thing. But the problem is that we refuse to allow people to dabble, and that's why things don't get learned. That's why we don't discover them. So essentially, they figure out that they could figure out what the disease is or what the cure is, find out the signal, load it into water essentially, and administer that into the body and start using that for healing effects. And sure enough, Mark Henry says, why don't we do this? Well, because if there's no physical immediate potential for it, for earnings, nobody wants to invest. Of course not.
It would put so many corporations out of business so fast.
Yeah.
By the way, whatever his name is, Luc. He Montier. He won the Nobel Prize in 2008. So he's a virologist. Well, he was a virologist. Yeah, he died in 2022 at the age of 90. Go you, dude.
Yeah. Awesome.
But he was a virologist, and he is credited as one of the two people who isolated that HIV was the cause.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Of
that's
AIDS.
What he did. That's exactly what he did.
So pretty
Crazy.
Impressive, intelligent, and to do that, and then to go and do this other experiment and keep pushing for it to be taken seriously. I mean, what did he have? He could literally rest on his laurels.
Yeah.
That's where the term comes from. He is a laureate. He received the laurel crown
Yeah.
of
Literally, man.
of the Nobel Prize. Like, and it, instead he, as an old dude, and he's fighting this fight for water. So it's very interesting. Um, and I guess it really makes me think of Revelation.
Mhm.
Revelation 22.
Yep.
So the very, very last chapter of the Bible. You know what? I could describe it, or I guess we could just
Yeah, we
read
can pull
it.
it up. It's for the sake of not having dead air, I'll just kind of elaborate a little bit, and I'll let Shell read it, because then she can elaborate it on it even better. Are you pulling it up, Shell?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Essentially, it talks about the waters feeding the trees whose leaves, I think it says the leaves itself, yeah, are for the healing of the nations once everything's been rectified, once God has come again and set everything in its place and set things right as they are to be, as they were always meant to be. That's really what in fact, I don't know if that came to both our minds. It certainly came to my mind when I started listening to this stuff. And while she's doing that, I'm gonna elaborate real quickly. I continue to believe that God has simply established spiritual / scientific laws. They are just laws. That's what they are. And we have some actual modern examples of healings taking place with water. We have ancient ones as well. We have biblical ones and non-biblical ones. One that comes to mind in the modern era, there is a temple in Egypt. I'm going to have to look up the name of that temple, but because I can't remember it off the top of my head. But there's a huge source of water under this temple, and it's always running through and everything. And it's always running through that area, but it became stagnant. And two archaeologists were trying to figure out where the water is coming from, and they were trying to pump it out. They were trying to get it all out, but they just couldn't. It would just replenish. It automatically replenished itself, which was crazy. And this guy who needed glasses, he was one of the archaeologists, was on site, and he said that as he was in these waters, he started to feel better the more time he was in them, working in these waters. And I mean, these are kind of gross waters, frankly. I mean, think about how long that water's been stagnant there.
Right.
Well, he gets the notion that he's going to take a swig, and it heals his eyes.
Wow.
It heals his eyes. And what comes to mind is the pool. It's Bethesda, right? The pool at Bethesda. Bethsaida. Sorry, guys. My crappy white American English supposition of how to pronounce Bethsaida. The man that tries to get into the waters when supposedly the angel flaps his wings and causes the waters to stir, and the first one to get to the waters is healed by those waters. Man, I think it is a spiritual law that waters can hold healing powers. Absolutely. What do you think we get the idea of not aging or reversing our aging through water? Like the sacred waters will allow our bodies to replenish. And yeah, man.
Right. What is that? The fountain of youth.
Fountain of youth. That's right. Yeah, I was thinking about that, and I didn't even bring it up to you, but it was on my mind as we were researching all this stuff, man.
Yeah, I forget about that. Okay, is it there? Yes.
Yeah, I see it.
And the angel showed me the river of life bright as crystal, flowing from the throne of God and of the Lamb through the middle of the street of the city. Also, on either side of the river, the tree of life with its 12 kinds of fruit, yielding its fruit each month. The leaves of the trees were for the healing of the nation. No longer will there be anything accursed, but the throne of God and of the Lamb will be in it, and his servants will worship him.
Man, I love it. Freaking love
Isn't that cool? And you know what? Because I remember, it's funny. I remember my youth leader. I don't know, when I was like 11 or 12, new to our church, and we were singing, I've got a river of life flowing out of me. And he's a tall guy, Mike, and when we do the spring up a well, he would jump and like his feet would go higher than our pews, the top of our pews. And it's such a funny thing that I remember Sunday night church, and because that was like the fun laid back service.
Yeah.
When the Holy Ghost really moved. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
But I had never put that river of life. I'd thought of it in so many other aspects of what the
Contexts.
Bible says
Yeah.
about the rivers, well springs of life flowing out of us, and in whatever, and Jesus being the living water. And if you knew who I was, you would ask me for living water. But it's about revelation. It's about the river that's gonna flow from the throne of Jesus in Zion, man. In Zion, from that holy mountain. Like, it's so crazy. It's not even crazy. It's so beautiful to me. Like, ooh, that makes my heart happy.
Yeah, man.
To think about that coming. So, Waters, being as we started at the very end of the book, let's go back to the beginning of the book and see what the Bible starts with. And that would be Eden's four rivers in Genesis 2. We've talked about this multiple times because it's such an interesting concept. I think most modern Western Christians don't think about Eden.
No.
Don't think about what it is, that it's a mountain and a garden, but it also had 4 headwaters, 4, which is really a lot. So if you have ever read the scripture and then gone to maps and looked, which I have, there are not many places where there are 4 headwaters, and a mountain and a lush garden. And honestly, I was telling Ricky, my personal theory on this is that well, it's twofold. One, Eden was a thin place.
Ooh.
It was the council of Elohim. It was the council of Yahweh and his divine council. So it was in other realms as well, I think, as ours. So it was really a place that probably encompassed almost everything, everywhere, every time. It was the every. But the rivers in it, there's the Tigris, the Euphrates, the Pishon, and the Gishon. And the Tigris and the Euphrates probably are familiar to everybody hearing this.
Yeah.
But
Nobody
the
knows those two.
Pishon and the Gishon, or Gichon, Gehon, maybe even because that C is usually silent. It's just a sound.
Gechon.
Um,
L'chaim. Sorry.
most theologians don't even really know what to do with it with these two. So they suppose maybe it's the White Nile and the Blue Nile, or maybe it's the Nile and um the Indus River. And the supposition is quite rampant, and we don't know, so somebody else's guess is as good as yours. um I think that it's possible, just just knowing uh how important the Mesopotamian area, the Middle East, has always been to God, that maybe Eden is now under what is the Red Sea, or the Persian Gulf, because you've got two of the rivers. You've got the Tigris and the Euphrates right there. If the Nile is possibly one, which it certainly could be, what's in between that is the Red Sea. But it wouldn't have been that way before the flood. But when the well springs opened up and the water levels rose, maybe it is now. But you know what? I mean, I'm not going to go on any archaeological digs to the Middle East and check this out. It's just my little, theory. Could somebody prove it wrong? Very possibly.
Sure.
Could somebody prove it right? Also possible.
Sure.
But it's just something that I thought was interesting. But why does the Bible even talk about those four rivers? There has to be a reason. The water mattered. And I don't know what you remember from fourth grade geography and world history, but I remember always being told that all big cities, all the cities, were founded around water.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, and it makes sense. You go, well, duh, of course. Except for what about Phoenix? But
Right.
now Phoenix has an underground water table that's really, really, really big. That's why Phoenix doesn't go through droughts like El Paso does.
Oh, wow, that's interesting. That makes a lot of sense, because we were just talking about the vortices not that long ago. Remember the ones there in Arizona?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's interesting. That's true.
There's some cool stuff about that kind of thing that I actually want to talk about here. And well, I don't want to steal. If you want to keep, if you wanted to mention another thing in particular,
No, go ahead.
Okay, cool.
I think I'll just go back and forth to the
This is
waters mentioned in the Bible. Yeah,
I like this kind of rhythm that we've got going. There are some things that I do want to mention. We've looked at a lot of modern things, but I also want to not neglect ancient ideas about water, because they are extremely informative to what we think now, what we watch a lot in movies, and frankly, what we ostracize or dismiss as, middle-aged foolishness, so to speak. Ancient foolishness, I guess we could say.
Middle-aged.
Yeah, middle.
What are you saying, whippersnapper?
I mean, dude, I got like 2 more years and I'm going to be way middle-aged. Like I'm about to hit my...
Get off my lawn!
I mean, I already say that. No, I'm kidding. Right?
Weren't you on your ring the other day and you were like, who's going through my yard? Oh, it's just a neighbor kid. Oh, no, that's my own kid.
Yeah, I did say that. Like, what the crap is this? Like, why are they walking all over? Oh, it's That's my son.
That's so funny.
That's okay. That's acceptable. I guess it's important to think about some ancient concepts too about water, because I think that they will probably really inform us about current concepts that we have and have neglected, like I just said. So water in the ancient, are you intentionally? Oh, okay. Water in the ancient world symbolizes femininity. It's tied to emotions. Obviously, it's tied to tidal changes. No surprise there.
Gosh.
No, I'm not trying to be funny. I'm just literally like that. That's the way the ancients thought about it. It's also, now this is interesting. It's tied to the idea directly of amniotic fluid, and it's analogous to the dream life and our soul. That's very interesting. In Hinduism, Taoism, Confucianism, Buddhism, Native Americans, shamanistic religions, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, they regarded water as an activating substance, which is what you and I had talked about. And this is really the core concept of my understanding. And I think that you and I largely agreed on this idea. It is for the purpose of activating what? Regeneration, which we clearly just talked about.
Right.
The washing of sins, the ultimate mystery of death and rebirth.
Absolutely.
That's very interesting to me.
Very much areas that I wanted to go to too. So
yeah,
absolutely.
Super cool stuff. The river Gange, I think it's Gange.
The Ganges River.
Is it Ganges?
The Ganges.
I don't know how to
or
say
Ganges River.
It's believed to be the creator of all life because it flows through down Shiva's hair. And it contains the longest river. It is the longest river there in India. And I thought this was really interesting. Something that they do there in India is that the cisterns will ritualistically, on certain occasions, be like filled back up or emptied down, and they all have to do with the recognition of power that water has. In the Buddhist legend, Kathmandu Valley in Nepal is where, you'll like this analogy, where a self-sprung lotus is seen by the Bodhisattva Manjurshi, who sees waters and allows them to recede for access to the worship of the lotus. So there's too many waters in the way, and he moves them out of the way. Aguas Calientes, not to be confused with the name of the city in Mexico, warm waters, that is, or hot waters, is the rushing Urubamba River around Machu Picchu. And the Incan emperor apparently revered it because of its special magnetic qualities, because it arises from the depths of the Andes and has basically regenerative powers. Maybe that's where we get, like the idea of the fountain of youth, right? Water and emotions are associated with the moon's phases, its light, its darkness. It's identified with the soul. I thought that was really interesting. And water is also not just a physical, but a spiritual conductor. A spiritual conductor.
So
you sound like you have something to say.
I do. Even though I was really enjoying that fudge pudding, because I wanted it for days.
Oh, fudge.
Some good JELLO. So let's go to water and the soul.
Okay.
Because I was thinking of the river Styx.
Mm-hmm.
And Charon, who, the ferryman who takes you across the river Styx.
Not the lady that accuses you of parking poorly in the parking lot.
I don't know. You know what? It's possible that Charon
resemblance
is the offspring of Charon.
Hey, do you want me to tell you my legit Karen story real quick before we
Yes,
continue?
absolutely. And then I can finish my pudding, and then we'll talk about spirits.
No joke. About a year ago, I don't remember why I had to run to Walmart for whatever reason, but I was with my kiddos, and my wife was not with me for whatever reason. It was just me and the kiddos. And so I think oh, that's right. We were gone to look at something, and she was at some other store, and we're going to go pick her up. So I took both my kids by the hand, because regardless of their age, until they are of very much of age, I grabbed my kids as we crossed the street. And so we were walking from we weren't walking from the door of Walmart. We had just walked out of Walmart, and I was headed towards where my car was, so that when I crossed the street, I would be right where my car was. Makes a lot of sense to me.
It goes.
And so I started, grabbed my kiddos. There was no one coming. As a grown adult, I looked both ways, made sure that we weren't going to die, and started walking towards my car. Right? Well, like, I guess we're about halfway across the street to get to the car when a car, like, from where Walmart is. Granted, I walked away from Walmart towards my car, okay, on purpose, so that I can get to where I needed to go. So some person starts driving up to me, like, unsettlingly fast for a parking lot, and I'm like, what is this person's problem? And so I'm almost to my car when some lady rolls down her window and starts screaming at me, and I'm like, what? Like, I'm crossing the street with my kids. Like, what is the issue? She's like, wow, you're in the way. I'm like, what are you talking about? She goes, you're in the way. There's a crosswalk for a reason. I'm like, are you serious? I was like, there's no one on the road. Like, that's why I waited till there was no one on the road, so that people like you didn't come yell at me. Like, what is wrong with you? But she just starts going off. Like, there's a crosswalk. You don't know what you're teaching your children, this and that. I mean, she was like trying to lecture me. And I go, lady, I was like, they're not your kids. Two, like, what in the world? Like, and then she started swearing at me. She starts swearing at me, and my kids are right there.
In front of your kids.
As I'm putting my kids in the car, and she's like, well, you're being a terrible example for your kids. I'm like, you're being a terrible example for my kids, swearing at me in front of my face while I'm trying to get my kids in the car. And she just kept going and going and I was like, lady, I don't know what your deal is. Like, you seem to be very, very disturbed that I didn't cross on the crosswalk and that I'm the bane of humanity because I didn't do so. You are a strange, weird woman.
Please go. Have a good day. Away from me.
I didn't think people like that existed, but they do exist. It was the most bizarre thing ever. I was like,
we just try to avoid them.
And my son was like, Dad, that was a total Karen. She was such a Karen. I think I called her that too. I was like, why are you being a Karen? Like, what's the issue? It was so funny, dude.
You can't call a Karen. You'll totally tick them off. But, oh my God.
You also don't. And I told the lady, which is the funniest thing to me, is that she drove up. I'm like, why are you driving like a maniac trying to hit me and my kids? Like, I'm just trying to get to my car. And she's like, well, because what you're doing is wrong. I'm like, what you're doing is
behind me, Satan.
Dangerous. I'm just getting in my car, dude. Anyway, Karen and the River Styx.
Don't pay the ferryman. Don't even set a price. Don't pay the ferryman until he gets you to the other side.
Yeah.
Words to live by? I don't know.
A way to die with honor? I don't know.
Supposedly you're already dead. It's your soul, right? Being taken to the underworld. But like, really, I don't know of a culture that does not consider bodies of water liminal, especially rivers.
Yeah.
So
I mean, Anubis, right? That's a prime example. Yeah.
Ryan Pitterson. I got it right. I had to look at his book right now and make sure.
Mr. Pitterson.
He has a very interesting viewpoint.
Unique.
Yeah, it's really good. Most modern biblical scholars who choose to find out anything about the Watchers, the Nephilim,
The unseen
whatever,
realm.
right? Have a tendency to believe, according to what they what we can read in the book of First Enoch, that Sem Jaza and his crew came down to mankind from Mount Hermon.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Very common belief. I have no problem with it. It's what my Kaiser subscribed to.
Yeah.
It's definitely, it has some weight, some merit to it.
Yeah.
But Peterson says this in Judgment of the Nephilim, which is a really, really good book. I know you know it, and for our viewers, it's a really good book.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you've heard us say it before. His belief is that it wasn't Hermon, but it was the Jordan River. That was the place where the angelic beings crossed into our realms to procreate with the daughters of mankind. Just put it that way, I guess, because try to think of how to
Quite
say it.
literally.
So, here are a few things about the Jordan River. So, the meaning of the Jordan River is it goes down, or it flows down. You know what? I should have written it down. Descent, something like that. But I've got my beautiful Young's concordance right here, so I'm just going to look Hij. So we'll just go, you know what? You got to love a good old book sometimes.
Oh, I love lots of old books.
I know.
Books are awesome.
They are pretty great. So Jordan, am I going to be able to read that, Shelley?
Go down to the river. Speaking of Jordan.
Right.
Let's see. Jordan. Let's see.
This is going to give me...
To go down.
To go down?
Yeah. And refers to the River Jordan flowing towards the Dead Sea. A beautiful title with a rich history. Baby Jordan will undoubtedly wear their name with pride and confidence as they flow through life. That's where that comes from.
Well, there you go. Thank you.
Yeah.
It also goes through the valley between Lebanon and Mount Hermon. So Mount Hermon is right there. So I don't necessarily think that you have to subscribe to the one over the other. It's possible that it's both. But here are some of the things that the Bible says happened on or around or through the Jordan River and the Jordan River Valley. Genesis, aside from the name, Genesis 13:10 tells us that the place that Abram and Lot came to was the Jordan River Valley, and it was a well-watered plain like the Garden of God. Genesis 28 tells us that Bethel was just due west of the Jordan, and that's where Jacob saw, Jacob's ladder. He saw the angels coming and going. In Joshua 3, and this is like really, really cool scripture. In the 3rd chapter of Joshua, after Moses has gone to the unseen realm, and Joshua is now the leader of Israel, and it's time to finally go in and possess the promised land. They cross the Jordan into Canaan at Gilgal. And the place where they do it is referred to now as Beth Abara, which is the house of the passage.
Mm.
But you know how at the beginning of this episode I was talking about, man, I never once said anything about the crossing the Sea of Reeds or the Red Sea by Moses. I guess that's, you know, one of the stories pretty much everybody is familiar with, how God stacked up the walls of water. And honestly, when they got the Israelites got to the Jordan, you know, they were like, where's Aaron's staff? Should we take it out of the ark? You know, is God gonna part these waters sometime today? You know? And then, you know, God, in typical God fashion, it says, no, that's not how we're doing it today, guys. I know that's how I did it last time, but I don't put myself on repeat. So, you know, he sends, well, he tells them how to line up, and he sends the ark first, right? And as soon as the Levites' feet who are touching the Jordan, as soon as they touch the Jordan, shoom, the water separates and they walk across. God has them do two really interesting things. He has them make a cairn of remembrance, or an altar, right, with 12 huge stones that should still be at Bethabara today. And he has them take 12 great stones and place them on that path of, I assume sand, mud, dirt, that they had walked across. So he left the waters parted long enough for them to do this and put those rocks down and let the water go back. And those rocks under the Jordan were to be a remembrance for the Israelites who never got to cross over because of their murmuring, their complaining, their general rebelliousness against God. And it's funny because my husband and I, you know, we've been reading so much about this, being as, you know, we're in the beginning parts of the Bible as we're reading through it together. And I usually go on a tirade because I get so irritated with the Christians who are like, I would never be that way. Oh, those children of Israel, and they're grumbling. Well, why didn't they just get in line? And I'm like, we would have been exactly that way. Oh man, I want some cucumbers and onions.
You forget that.
You know?
People get pissed off because their internet goes out.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, just so much of this stuff. We are the modern equivalent, all of us, of Karen, compared to, you know, patient Susie or whomever. I don't know. I'm making stuff up now.
The good thing is that God made a crosswalk and they actually used it. So
Oh my gosh. You brought it there. Well done. That's impressive.
I'll have to make that into a clip now.
You will.
Karen clip.
The Karen clip. So, the fun thing about this in Bethabara is that when John the Baptist, you know, Jean Baptiste, because Ricky got to tell everybody all the names, all cool. So there you go. Jean Baptiste.
I'm not. I hate French.
I'm not a fan either, but
not the French, just French.
Right. The language. When JB is doing his ministry, preparing the way of the Lord in the wilderness, quite literally.
I thought you were going to say Jacques Benveniste. I thought that's who you're saying. Like, JB.
No, JB, Jean Baptiste.
José Baptiste.
He's baptizing at Bethabara. And the Pharisees and the Sadducees are giving him a hard time, right? And he says to them, he says pretty much, you know what? You guys are not that great. Yahweh can raise a nation from these rocks right here. And I just like that. I like how uh, the Bible brings it back full circle.
Yeah.
But with the angels coming and going right there at the Jordan, the Jacob witnesses two different times, same basic area. First that time, when he's heading to Laban, and he sees the angels coming and going, and then when he wrestles with Yahweh in particular, um and God dislocates his hip, but also gives him a blessing and says, "From now on, your name is Israel." That was on his way back from Laban to first meet with Esau, and then to establish his home and his land. But when John baptizes his cousin Jesus in the dirty Jordan River, man, the Holy Spirit descends upon him right there. And so there seems to really be something about Jordan being kind of a highway where the angels come and go.
Yeah.
Elijah on the day that God was taking him, and everybody knew it, man. Like Elijah knew it, Elisha knew it. The other dudes down the road who also were followers of God, they knew it because they say to Elisha at one point, they say, "Hey, did you know God's coming to take your master today?" And he's like, "Yeah, fool, I know, shut up." You know? Well, I mean, as you do, when your mentor is about to leave you, and that's a scary thought.
Yeah, no kidding.
But so that whirlwind, the chariot of fire, if you prefer, although I think the chariot of fire was more as a spectacle, although there seems to be the chariot of fire and the whirlwind motif in the Bible a wee bit.
Yeah.
Elijah's taken up, and then Elisha gets the double anointing right there, right at the Jordan. The Jordan River just seems to truly be a place of a lot of crossover activity, if you will. Going to the healing, we see Naaman, when he becomes leprous, being told, go dunk in the Jordan 7 times, and he's like, "Seriously, man, is that gonna make me more dirty?"
Yeah.
But he doesn't. He's healed.
Sure.
Um,
You know who I'm thinking of, not necessarily as a healing property, but portalistic, or if nothing else, at least again facilitating spiritual energy, right? Spiritual flow, is Philip with the eunuch.
Yeah, that's where I thought you were gonna go. That's Acts 8. This is literally one of my most favorite stories.
Being that eunuch, he's like,
"Where'd dude go, man? The heck?" Yeah.
Yeah.
Philip's like, "Star Trek ain't got nothing on me, man. I didn't even need Scotty."
I ain't need no Scotty. I got Gotti.
Oh gosh, it's so bad. So bad. Yeah, that wasn't the Jordan River though. That was just like some little
That was
little pool.
Durway Fountain near Halhul.
There
that
you
old
go.
chestnut.
Yeah,
chestnut.
there, right there. Okay.
Yep.
And I've got that down. Like my biblical sources.
Which actually that lends a little bit more credence towards the concept that that water in general does have portalistic tendencies, but it needs to be. It would seem that it needs to be imbued with spiritual quality or spiritual power first, right? Like, I don't know.
Maybe not. I mean,
Maybe
it's
not.
a baptism, so because that's what Philip does, right? Philip
Right.
baptizes the
Yeah,
eunuch,
absolutely.
just like and John baptizes Jesus.
Yeah.
And baptism's a big deal. Like, we don't treat baptism the way I think it is supposed to be treated.
Certainly not.
There are plenty of people who have made confession and have not been baptized, and then we get into the whole sprinkling of water, total submersion, babies, blah 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 blah. But it seems like in the in the New Testament, right? Like the people. Oh, her hands weren't totally submerged.
Her hand didn't go under. She's still demonic.
It's not real. It's like, speaking of Karens, oh my gosh.
Christian Karens. God
Christian
love them.
Karens, they are the worst. There is a term called GCBs, and I'm not going to tell you what it is, but
Good
I
Christian
mean, yeah, good Christian somethings. Just think of big, high, blonde hairdos, and vipers' tongues, short dresses. Yep, man, we can be so ugly. It's so awful to me. But we're not going to go and talk about Kat Von D's baptism tonight, anyway.
Nope.
But the baptism, like, people they said, how do I follow Jesus? I believe this. I want it. What do I have to do?
Mm-hmm.
And what they didn't say some repeat after me. This is a sinner's prayer, and then you're going to get your golden ticket into heaven. It's not what happened. Like, they said, okay, I buy into what you're selling. I believe Jesus is Messiah. Let's get baptized right now. Let's go find some water. And boom, they did it.
Yeah, man.
I was baptized when I was 12, and I've been thinking, like, I mean, I have repented. I have been baptized. There's nothing that says you can't be baptized more than once. As a matter of fact, there is some teachings in the church, and I'm not very familiar with them. I have to find out more because nobody really teaches deeply on baptism.
No,
this is one of those things.
It's a pretty misunderstood concept, I think.
I think so too, and it bothers me.
Yeah, I don't really have. If we come back to water, we're probably definitely going to be hitting on that because it's a very ancient practice, frankly.
It is, and it has tons and tons of power. It's the mikvah, man. It's a big stinking deal.
Yeah, it sure is.
We don't understand, and I think part of it is because we're looking at it through the lens of modern Westerners.
Yeah, we refuse to engage with the idea that water could contain any kind of power or memory or spiritual quality or anything like that.
Or, what God said in the Old Testament isn't for the New Testament. Yes, it is. It is. No, like,
so why we include it?
Right. Well, because there's baptism in the New Testament. It's everywhere. But Christians don't get that it's based off of the mikvah, which was used so much in the Old Testament. And again, man, if you have not read the whole Bible for yourself, it's tedious, y'all, but do it.
You know what? I don't know, man. I'm
tedious.
I'm not convinced it's tedious anymore. Like, I'll be reading Leviticus now, and I'm like, why did this happen? What's going on here?
Right. Well, remember the other day when I got so excited about the stupid liver, the long lobe of the liver?
That's absolutely fascinating. And it's funny that you mentioned that. I literally was reading something to that effect in the morning, and you probably already know this if you're reading Gilbert's book, but I my Bible, that chronological Bible I've been reading through, I was really, really impressed because they talk about how they did the divination with the liver. They would look at the bumps on the liver and they would read them, and I was like, what? That's crazy. That is crazy. I mean, that is interesting
it was
stuff.
a deal, and there's a name for that, the divination from entrails.
Livination. Libernation.
Libernation.
It's pretty
But
fascinating.
and I agree with you. I shouldn't say it's tedious because that feeds into that misconception.
It's tedious because
we're undisciplined.
We're undisciplined, but also like, I mean, I'm just speaking specifically for myself. When I understood that there were giants involved, that's all I'm going to say. Like, the Bible changed to me, man. The Bible was no longer a cardboard cutout of a religion. I was like, dude, there is some substantial evidence that bears very true in what I'm reading.
So much of it, when you realize that there is a fallen divine council, when you realize that the world was apportioned to the sons of God, the Elohim, and they chose to be worshipped in God's place. Most of them, maybe not all of them, but
and they have
most of
direct
them
influence on things that we're doing, and I might go as far as to say as vice versa. Probably.
But,
I mean, it makes sense to me.
Absolutely, but not even that, but just reading the Bible, knowing that, then you're like, okay, so why this? Oh, so when Jesus walked on the water, he was doing what? Oh, so when God parted the water, he was taking away whose power, showing him ain't no Baal.
Yeah.
Got what I've got.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. And eventually we'll get there. Man, that's going to be something wild. I guess I'll put out here, Ricky and I want to write a Bible study specifically from the Divine Council worldview.
Yeah, man.
And it's an endeavor. It's not going to be easy, but I'll tell you what, it's really cool because just reading through the Bible with just that knowledge, just knowing that there are little g gods muddling things up, and that the Bible was written the way it was to basically thumb the nose at those deities that decided they were going to try to take God's place.
You know, I think I don't know if you watched my Marco the other day that God gave me this just kind of resounding revelation when I was just, believe it or not, literally sitting and meditating and just hanging out with God, but like actually meditating. It was very cool.
You can't say actually meditating and not be more specific, because people are going to envision you doing
that's
this.
That's why I was just about to qualify it. Okay. Meditating on God, but actually meditating on God, because a lot of times we think about God, or a lot of times we pray on God, a lot of times we wait on God, but it was just a different type of prayer. I was just meditating on God, and he was talking to me, man, and I had just finished watching or listening, I guess, a really good episode by Camp Hermon. I recommend you guys check them out. It's
I have not yet.
Different than Shell and I for sure, and actually, to me, it follows a lot more of like the common podcast flow, and I'm not against that. I don't want to do that. That's not what I want to do, at least not right now in my life anyway. But there was some really cool information, and part of that was that I was really left under the impression, not that they said this, but I was under the impression that God's intention was never to write a book for us, because he was talking to us. He was always talking to us. And it was crazy to me, because God was like, yeah, man, he was telling me, he's like, it was not my intention. And I asked him, was it your intention to write a book? He's like, no, for what? Like, I was already talking to you guys. Like, that's why, because it doesn't make sense to me, right? What, like a lot of people complain, well, the Bible was written so late. Well, yeah, there was no reason to write a Bible if God
Right.
talks to mankind one-on-one. What's the purpose in writing it down? And we can get into that whole section because you guys know about linguistics and how much I'm super passionate about that. But what was really cool to me is that God was like, and God has told me this on a particular occasion. I was like, man, God, I remember praying one time. I was like, Lord, it is so hard for me to pray, but it's so easy to read the Bible. And God was super specific, and he brought this back to my memory when he was talking to me about this. He was like, well, yeah, dude, because when you read it, it's on your terms, and when you talk to me, it's on my terms. And I went, whoa. So God never had the intention for us to read stuff. Not that it couldn't be done. Obviously
Right.
it can, and not that it's not useful. But
Well, you know what? So I
anyway.
have a friend, and she's not much longer for this realm.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, she always does a Christmas letter every year. So I was thinking, you know what? While I still have the opportunity to tell her before she goes to the unseen realm, which she will do, I have no worries. I'll see her again in heaven.
Yeah.
But I want to write down a letter telling her what she has meant in my life. And I was thinking about that, and like, I'm good with words. I can turn a phrase very well. And it's something I can do. And in my mind I was thinking all these things, and then I was like, no, Lord, please help me to remember this when I'm writing it down. Because I don't want it to come out of me now when I can't write it down and I'm going to forget it. But I want to tell her the things about her that I appreciate, that are a blessing, that were such an encouragement.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can tell her in heaven when I watch her get her crowns. I really hope we get to watch each other's crowning. Because there's some people, man, I am gonna be making a ruckus for those people who are part of my journey. But I was thinking about that, and it's not, I haven't had to do it before. Yeah, I can just tell her, "Hey, I love you. You're such an encouragement. I want to be like you when I grow up." Just those things, and those are all things that I have said to her on more than one occasion, and I have meant wholeheartedly. But I just want that to write that down for her so that she has it, because there's something very
sacred,
precious about being able to reread something and to touch it. And then not only that, but it's something that somebody else, her family, can look at and see that and be like, oh yeah, that was so true. Oh yeah. And it touches them as well. And I think that's how God's word is for us. I think you're right. When we're face to face to him, he talks to us, and we're lucky at the time we live that we can look at his word and make sure that what we're hearing is in alignment.
Right.
But Moses didn't need to write it down. Moses didn't write down the law for himself. He wrote it down for the ones who refused to go see God face to face. They said, no, we're going to stay here. You go do that. Could you please put something over your face, please? Because you're making us real uncomfortable, dude.
His face was like freaking the headlights on a car, man.
Right.
Crazy. Dang. We got way off topic. It was very cool, but we got way off topic.
We did get off topic.
Was there anything you were gonna
The only other thing I was gonna do is talk about Ezekiel and Daniel, both their angelic
encounters,
and the times that they had the taking up into the heavens and their visions of the throne
Hmm.
were by rivers.
Oh,
The
then hold that thought then.
Okay.
Because I want to get through just a few, I think, that are really important things. Well, by rivers, you said, right?
Yeah. Oh, all that I have to do is tell you the rivers.
Do it.
Ezekiel was the Chubar River, which is in Iraq,
Mm.
and Daniel's encounters were by the Tigris.
Hmm.
And so,
Wow.
yeah, right.
That's
And
very
so I was
telling.
like, "Where's the Chubar River, man?" And I tried looking, and it's not like a huge river, but it's a river in Iraq.
Oh,
So,
that's interesting, man. Especially the Tigris. That's really interesting.
right.
That's very cool. I guess the only other thing I really wanted to touch on was some uses that ancient, even modern cultures have for how. Yeah, maybe that's where we should go with this. Like how water acts as a lubricant. We talked about this, right? How it acts as a catalyst for spiritual movement and
Right.
obviously scientific movement. We talked long and fine about water memory and scrying and all this stuff, and I think largely that was well covered. But there are a few topics that I just want to hit on, and we can close it out after that, unless there's anything else you think of. Oh, there is something I do want to that I think we just almost missed. The extraterrestrial phenomenon. We'll hit that at the end.
Gosh, no kidding. Yeah.
At the end. Okay. So there's some stuff I want to talk to you guys about.
Kind of talked about it with Daniel. I mean,
Yeah, a little bit.
Elijah. and Ezekiel. And
I mean, yes, and no.
Kinda.
You know what I'm talking about.
I do know.
Okay. Okay. Geez, there's like a bajillion things that I had written down, man. But it's all good. I'm not gonna waste you guys'
It's
time.
a deep subject, yo.
Deep waters, deep cries out deep. So I just want to mention some beliefs I think are really important or interesting. There's a place called Creation Lakes and Waterfalls. This is in Oregon, and the Klamath tribe lives there. And they believe that in an earlier era of creation, the chiefs of the underworld and the world above fought each other. And the lake was the result of their pitched battle. Now, this is fascinating because in reality, the lake was actually formed over 7,000 years ago when a volcanic eruption happened.
It's a water filled in caldera.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
But interesting that the backstory is gods and titans fought. No, never heard that one before.
Strange. And interesting that it was 7,000 years ago. It's very interesting. I'm not making any implications. I'm just making observations.
Right.
This particular body of water is really interesting because they use it for vision quests. Now, if you don't know anything about vision quests are super, super common in Native America. I'm not talking to you, Shaw. I'm sure you know very well about that kind of stuff. You probably actually can explain it better than I can. But vision quests were essentially, as I understand it, something that was used, especially by young men, to kind of initiate themselves as men, but also to make that connection with the Great Spirit. Am I right? Is that basically, yeah? And so it was really
or in times of trouble, when they needed a big answer.
Yeah. That's very true. Yes, there's several occasions, especially like when there was a drought or a famine or things like that. They would go on a vision quest. That's absolutely right. oftentimes those vision quests were extremely in extreme levels and styles of fasting. So like very,
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
intense. And what I thought was really interesting, super cool about this was that, I mean, this, I'm not gonna lie, it scares the bejesus out of me to think about it, but it's very cool. Is that the
Oh,
shaman?
this is a nighttime thing.
Yeah, the
Dude, I would
shaman.
never firm pass.
Yeah, well, the shaman would go into this essentially caldera, just like you were saying, right? That's at the tippy top of the mountain, and the mountain's basically chopped off, and so it's filled in at the top. So it's like essentially a giant valley filled in with water. And his job as the shaman is at night, in the dead of night, to go into the waters, deep into the waters, to commune with the gods. That is some
No.
creepy stuff, yo.
I grew up with a pool in my backyard, and we would go swimming in the dark in the pool,
No,
and that was
no,
creepy.
no,
That was
no,
as
no.
creepy as I was getting. I cannot even imagine being in a larger body of water where you can't see the bottom and in the dark. Like it is
Yeah.
just not happening.
The Huron Indians. These are the Indians there in Niagara Falls. That refers to the place is called the place where thunder strikes. And the legend tells of a spirit of Lake Ontario who is a, wait for it, serpent. And when it tried to leave the lake, the creator struck the serpent so violently that even today the serpent spirit of the lake roars at the mere memory of the blow. Whoa, that's crazy, yo.
So hold on. Matching story. This is rabbinical teachings from Genesis 1. So
I'll take the
when
beginning of creation for $500.
when God hovers over, the Spirit of God hovers over the face of the deep, there is creation stories that he was fighting Leviathan, that he was just overtaking and destroying the Leviathan, and then he created the world. So Leviathan represents like chaos, which same as that other creation story you just told. It's really, really interesting to me when the Native Americans have, when they have a lot of the great creator stories.
Yeah.
The creator came to us, the creator God, and they're animistic and pretty polytheistic, but there's still a head. There's still the creator God.
Well, some are way more polytheistic than others. Is a better way, I guess, to say it. Yeah.
But there seems to be an understanding of the head God who created everything else, and the other gods were created beings.
Well, even in ancient, even in Mesopotamian literature, right? Like you'll have the one god that, and then the other god. And then even though those gods were overthrown and overcome, there was still a source. There was always a source. And that's what's funny to me, because
you see the common threads again and again. Absolutely.
Yeah, but even
like
the
there's
ancients,
a conspiracy.
There totally is. But even the ancients shall. I mean, there's such hubris in the West. I mean, there's just an unbelievable hubris, because even the ancients were willing to acknowledge a beginning source, and modern Westerners are inflexible when it comes to anything else but the material realm being anything. I'm like, you believe in the quantum, but you don't believe in.
Yeah, I mean, we take the spiritual out of Christianity.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
what the
yeah,
problem is. That's why we have a podcast,
yeah.
because
I know, I know.
that is what we're trying to combat, is that ideology that um Christianity isn't spiritual, that God is not spiritual, that the world is not full of the supernatural that our
Yeah,
supernatural God created.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's exactly right. And refusing to, I mean, in my opinion, refusing to understand that the elements have very specific purposes, like, is just bizarre to me, and that they have like spiritual purposes as well. Like, uh,
Yeah, that
it's
they're
like you said about
multifaceted.
that's really what it is, right? That they're poly. I mean, they're multi-use. What's the word for that?
Mhm.
It's late, man. Brain's going.
It is like, I know, I can't think of it either.
Multiple uses. I mean, we'll just go with that. Multifaceted, right? That it's an entirely. Is that what you said? That's what you said. It's got
Mhm.
multiple uses in any case. Um, it, it's crazy to me, man. Like, water should be no different than any other thing, and the fact that I don't know, man. We just treat God's creation with just such
Disdain.
commonality.
Yeah,
There's no sacredness in the way we do things.
right.
You know what? I actually don't
Everything
even
is
think it.
profaned.
Yeah, yeah. I think I'm actually going to cut it there. The point is that there are many stories that are biblical and extra biblical, pagan, Christian, all that, everything in between. Water seems to be um, a type of conduit. It really does. There's like, honestly, I think I could probably talk for another hour with all the notes I have, but I don't think it's
Right,
needs
right.
overstating. Like, that's the point. Water was put here and used. Oh, I do want to mention the aliens thing and the other thing.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
The it was put here and is used by nefarious and by good forces all together, right?
Oh, because it's a tool.
As it's a tool. That's exactly right. So to clarify my points, me personally, I don't believe water is alive, but I think that there is definitely an ability that God could make water alive, or gods could make water alive. I can't say yes or no. It's just a supposition. But what seems to be very, very clear and kind of ring true in all circumstances is that water is a spiritual conductor as well as a physical conductor. It absolutely is.
Yeah.
And having said that, I will let Shell kind of well, let me say this, and then I'll let you have the floor. One thing that I stumbled across with all these ancient musings is that every megalithic site seems to have tons of water running through or under it, being surrounded by water. And in specifically, the way that these waters cross tend to create vortices, which allow for more spiritual conduction. And so I think it's, there is really something to, like, even this guy right here, right? This guy who's spouting out water. That's why we get the toil. What is it? Toil, bubble and trouble.
Boil. No, I
Boil,
can't,
toil and
because you
trouble.
ruined it.
There you go. Boil, well,
There you
toil and
go.
trouble. Yeah, I mean, there's something to, like, the mixture, the water, the need for water to lubricate the movement of spiritual occurrences.
Well,
Frankly,
even life is in the blood, but
yeah,
the
it's
water's in
mostly
the
water.
blood.
Yeah. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
like, for sure. Um,
You.
okay, so I've always loved the Bermuda Triangle, and I
Oh.
really tried to have something be there. Like, I searched and searched, but statistically, it is not an anomaly. There are some documented cases of disappearances, um, especially the Foo Fighters.
Great band.
Um, those are not the ones I meant. but the actual
I have no idea.
World War II, Japanese fighters disappeared over that area. We had, um, gosh, I didn't write this down, and I thought I would remember it, but there is
Famous last words.
a group of um, uh, American, I don't know, fighter jets that disappeared over the Bermuda Triangle. It's possible that they all ran out of gas, like in the swampy areas of Florida or, over the ocean. I'm not sure. But I really looked and I wanted there to be something because really, I remember being a kid and Bermuda Triangle mystery.
It's such a big thing. Yeah.
But nah, I could not find anything of any kind of merit at all. Um, the lights, so the UFOs, what else are we calling them?
UAPs.
USOs and UAPs.
Well, that's super important. That like the linguistic terminology and the reason for the modification is really, really important. I don't necessarily agree with it, but yes,
I mean, I get why they're going there.
Yeah.
But the USO is just an unidentified submerged object.
Oh, right, that's right.
Instead of it being a flying object, although it is also flying, whatever, fine. There is a lot of activity of UAPs. We'll just go with UAPs.
Yeah. Well, there's a reason for they're using that. I'm if you understand the reason, I understand why it's being said that way, but I still think UFO just is
right
just
because
relevant.
the orbs.
Right.
Because the implication is more that an orb might be some form of more organic
Hadn't thought
thing
about that.
than a vehicle. So fine, UAP unidentified
No, it's unidentified aerial phenomena.
aerial phenomena. No,
Well,
anomalous
phenomena.
phenomena.
Thank you. Yeah, it's
Which
not aerial.
really phenomena is almost anomalous anyway. But okay, fine, cool beans, whatever.
It's very stupid.
A lot of them going into bodies of water, oceans, lakes. I don't know about rivers so much, but maybe coming out of the same. I didn't really go in and dig up dates and times. I feel like everybody knows about the Nimitz Tic Tac UFO that went under the water in the northern Atlantic. Honestly, to me, these are so much like Elijah's chariot of fire, or fiery horse and chariot, the wheel within the wheel, with the eyes, which I don't know, they seem like lit windows. It's probably what they're trying to describe there. I don't think it's ancient aliens. I think, and I don't know how well we have communicated this. We talk about it quite frequently. We know what we think, and so I think we assume that we have communicated it, but just in case, we think that angels aren't winged menfolk. That's not what the Bible says angels are like. There's a one particular type of angel that has 6 wings. With 2 it covers
noted.
its face, 2 it covers its genitals and its feet, and with 2 it flies. But that is not the standard. Standard angels, we get our ideology of angels from the Romans, from In particular,
our
Nike.
our iconic our iconism, right? Our
Right.
yeah,
Iconography.
iconography. Thank you. Yeah. Um, the the only thing I want to add to that, because I agree with all of it, is just that the term UAP seems to be, I wouldn't say the government grappling. I would say the government trying to stay on top of stuff.
Yeah, it's deceitful
Yeah, it is.
of
And
them. It is. It's them trying to muddy
the waters.
yeah.
But
But they're trying to confuse the language so that
sure.
people are caught on the wrong foot.
Well, and the issue here is that it is interesting that you and I'm going to stick to UFO. That's fine for me. That
Okay.
UFOs tend to be around bodies of water, large bodies of water, and the reason that they were relabeled UAPs, unidentified anomalous phenomenon, is because there is no change in physics as they go from one medium to another. So they are transmedium objects.
That's right. I forgot about that. Yeah. They go into the water and come out of the water with no
nothing.
splash, no wave, nada.
And there's nothing affected by in the water.
That's right. I forgot about that. There's no gush of winds. They just, yeah, you're right. Although it's interesting, not pertaining to the water aspect of what we just said, but the levels of close encounters. One of them, and I'm sorry, I'm not well read enough about this to be able to tell you. I think it's the second close encounters of the second kind. When the UFO causes changes to material things, i.e., burns grass, blows hot vapor, something along those lines. And I think that's the second kind. I could be wrong. It might be the third. I don't know. I've not been abducted, and I have not watched enough ET, so I don't
We're headed that way. We're headed that way.
Right. Saying.
So, I think that covers it.
I think so. And you know what? If you have something else with water that you totally think that we like, how in the world did we miss it? Send it our way. We are super fallible. We miss things. If you think this is all bupkis, cool, tell us about it and why. If you want to know more about something in particular, let us know. It really is a very extensive topic. So you can there is so much information about water. You can get a PhD. You can do a doctoral study. Get your degree.
PH2OD if you want to.
Oh gosh. You can be a hydromancer.
Oh my god.
Oh, we could come up with little things like that all day long.
I know, man.
Oh,
it's gross,
geez.
but it's wonderful.
But let us know. Hey guys, we're doing a Cosmo tomorrow.
You can say it. I mean, you could probably say it because by the time that
right, we're continuing on with the theme of water, and we are talking about Kat Von D and her recent baptism, how cool it is, and we're going to talk about some Christian Karens and how we ought not to be them. Bruh. So we're excited about this. I've been wanting to talk about this.
I have too.
For a few weeks.
This is well, to not get too muddy up the waters too much. She really, man, her language sounds so much like my language up until I was about 25, 26 or so. just really. So I don't know. I have a lot of knowledge base and affinity there that I'm just like,
A lot of empathy too. A lot of empathy for what she's going through.
I know she's not. I mean, I know we're a small channel also, but I know she's not really in that vein right now. But one day I'm gonna really sit. I want to see if she wants to sit down with us and chat about.
Man,
some
can
of
you
these
imagine? That'd be real
Genesis
cool.
6 kind of ideas. Good stuff.
You know what though, dude? She seeks. She really seeks after
she's
God.
she's
Oh,
not
it's so
afraid to.
cool.
She's not afraid to do it. At
No,
all.
she's real cool. Her testimony's fantastic.
We'll talk about it tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. We're real excited about it. Hopefully y'all are too. With that said, as usual, we have run into the wee hours of the early morn.
It's only one.
And we want to bless you and go to bed.
Amen. Heck yeah.
So, did you want to give the blessing, Rick, or
No,
do you want me to do it? Okay. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his countenance towards you and give you peace. And also, Lord, bring peace to Jerusalem and to Israel. And by doing that, you will bring peace to the Middle East as well. We know it won't last too terribly long, but we know it has to be in order for you to come.
Yeah.
And as part of the bride, along with the Spirit, we say, come, Lord Jesus. So, Maranatha, guys.
God bless you guys. Maranatha. Shalom, shalom.
Shalom, shalom.
Later, group kids. Thank you for watching this episode of The Christian Theological Dark Web. For questions or comments, please email us at thechristiantheologicaldarkweb@gmail.com. If you'd like to support us, please look for the Patreon link in the description. This has been another production of CTDW Studios. Thank you, and God bless.